Welcome to the Author Your Life podcast, where you can write a new script for your life and become the hero of your story. I'm your host, David McRae. You are the author of your life. Let's get started.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Author Your Life podcast. Today on the episode, we have Denise Mortimer. Denise is an NLP Master Coach, positive psychologist, inspirational speaker, and business mentor. She believes that it is criminal, yes, criminal, to not live to your potential. Denise believes that it is her purpose to help people connect with their purpose and lose their self-limiting beliefs. Denise can't help but be curious and ask questions that begin to tap into and unlock your genius. It's surprising how quickly a breakthrough can occur. She's worked with hundreds of individuals on a one-to-one basis and even more through workshops and speaking events. Denise is on a mission to impact millions of lives in a positive way. And hopefully today, one of those lives will be you. In this interview, you will learn that we hold myths about optimism that aren't true, the benefits of being pessimistic, that job is not necessarily a dirty word, a prayer that always gets Denise back on track, and how to set up a morning routine. I hope you enjoy this interview with Denise Mortimer. Denise, welcome to the Author Your Life podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, David. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. So, Denise, I would like to introduce you to the listeners. And I'd like to begin by asking, why did you get into coaching?
It's a long story. I'll give you the edited version. I've always been a people-oriented person. I've just been able to build rapport with people from a very early age. At school, we had like a class of special needs kids, and I was the one who wanted to make them feel like I knew they were different, and I wanted to make them feel that they were part of things. Just always been like wanting people to feel like they fit in and seeing the brilliance in them when they don't see it themselves. So I've had that from childhood. And I guess I never knew how to channel it as an adult. And we do what our parents say to do. So my dad used to say, get a government job because it's a job for life. So of course I followed in his footsteps and got my government job for life. But I was always coaching, and I then studied things like NLP and positive psychology, and I did coaching mastery courses. But I didn't know how to channel it into a business. So I probably spent the better part of 20 years trying to figure out how to run it as a business, but just coaching people ad hoc, not knowing who I was ever going to coach and not actively seeking clients because I just didn't know what I was doing. So the short answer is I've been a coach ever since I was born because I've been a people person. And the long answer is what I've just said. And I've now been able to honestly, by the grace of the universe, been able to create a sustainable business from it. And I believe that I've been able to create this business because it's alignment. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I do believe that we are graced and blessed when we align ourselves rather than fight, because so many people try and fight. So
Yeah. So when do you feel the moment of clarity came where all of this work that you've been putting in suddenly started to click for you?
I've had a lot of fun with coaching over the years, and just to try and pinpoint it, as a business, the moment of clarity came at my kitchen table in November 2016. Now, my daughter, who's one of the coolest people on the planet, she is a digital nomad, and I didn't even, I was like, what on earth is a digital nomad? Okay, I'll support whatever you do, but what is it? And we're sitting at the kitchen table, and she said, why don't you take your coaching online? And I'm like, how do you do coaching online? I had no idea how to do it. And she showed me her client's website, and she said, this is what I do. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. But it was scary because I'm like, this woman has beautiful pictures and she's got beautiful articles written, and I don't have anything like that. Mm-hmm. But then I decided that I was going to have a crack at it, and I did. And that was, I think, you know, turning 50 was a big turning point, because when you get to 50, if you're lucky enough to get to 50, it's this point where you're like, there's less ahead of me than there is of me. That's just the truth. You know, if we're fortunate, we might make it to double that, but chances are we'll expire before that. And it was a case of, if I don't start living the dream in my heart, if I don't start doing the things that I feel called to do but have denied because I wasn't sure what to do, it's never going to happen. So I started to seek out mentors and started to accelerate myself as a coach.
Mm-hmm. Denise, one of the things that strikes me about you is that you're a very confident woman, and certainly in your business, I feel that one of the things that you give to people is this sense of confidence in who they are, their potential. Have you always been a confident person?
It's an interesting question. As a child, I think I had my own insecurities. You know, you grow up with, comparison syndrome, where even now I look at I have to remember to stay in my own lane. I have to remember to live my own path, because I can look at someone else and go, oh, that looks so desirable. I want to be in Australia now, or I want to be doing this. I want to be speaking on that stage. But I got to remember, just stick to what feels right for me. Stick to where I'm supposed to be going, because amazing things are sort of cropping up for me. Sometimes it's I forget that. But confidence has come over time. What I really admire is I see so many young people now with this like supreme confidence, and I'm thinking, wow, was I like that at 25 years old? I'm not sure I was. So I think for me, it has been something that's come with age. And also, like, in terms of my business, I know my subject, I know what I'm talking about. And in terms of my personal life, I know what I like and what I don't like, and I know who I like and who I don't like, and I'm better at, one of the things I love around NLP is like the use of language, and I always have fun with people with the word try, and it gets a huge laugh when I say to people, like, do you ever say, I'm going to try to come to your party? And they go, yeah, we say that. I'm like, well, what you mean is that I'm not coming to your party, but I haven't found the way to say it yet.
Yeah.
So I think I've become more like, an invitation comes my way that doesn't align with my sense of purpose. I'll be like, thank you very much. I really appreciate you thinking about me, but I'm going to decline on this occasion. So just knowing my own self, and again, maybe it is age related for me. So I think over the years it's got better and better. There are times when I get wobbly and I think, what am I doing? Maybe I'll just go back and get a job. But the funny thing is, I have a friend of mine who's much more successful, like in terms of financially, and her, what she's achieved so far in her life. And we were having a conversation the other week, and she said, I just think sometimes I'll go back and get a job. And I'm like, I'm so reassured to hear this from you, because you can look at someone who's a few steps above you and think they've really got it together. But then to hear them say, well, I could always just go back and get a job, you think, well, and it also made me think that we need to, I'm so glad I'm out of the corporate world, but it's about expressing gratitude for the opportunities it gave me to allow me to be on the journey, to earn money, to learn things that, like, I worked in the NHS for years, so I learned so much about how the NHS works, and I worked in local government. So whereas there's a lot of, in the entrepreneurial world, disrespecting jobs provide something for people who think, well, I don't know if I can make it as an entrepreneur, or they've provided the springboard to allow people to move into being entrepreneurs. So big up for the jobs.
There's a couple of things that I want to elaborate on a little bit there. The first of which was talking about this word try, and me and my partner right now, we're kind of having a clamp down on try and maybe. Like, if it's not going to happen, say it's not going to happen, but don't float in the middle. Make it yes or make it no. If it's no, that's fine, but make sure you're definite and you've made a decision that it's going to be no.
Yeah.
Like, she'll say something like, I'm going to try and go to the gym tomorrow. And I'll just look at her and she'll say, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm like, yes, there we go. I think it's really important to monitor your language like that, because I think we like to float around in the middle with a lot of things in life. And I think being able to make a decision one way or the other is really important. So I'm glad that you picked up on that word, try.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That people do like to sit on the fence. And I actually, going back to my sort of NHS work, a lot of times there would be, decision makers who people sit on the fence, and I'd be like, I know what we should do. I know. Like, and you have to just take a decision, because you'll live with the consequence one way or another. And literally flipping a coin is one of the best ways to make a decision, because intuitively you know what you want to come up, and if what you want doesn't come up, then you're going to feel it somewhere in your body. So
yeah.
Should is another.
Yes, should.
It's another one of those amazing words that you can release so much unnecessary energy expenditure when you get rid of the should in your life. I should go to the gym. It's like try. It's a close relation of try.
Yeah. What do you think's been a difficult decision that you've made along your journey?
Difficult decision, probably the one to fly on my own, to leave a job, to leave the security, because I left a job at 52 years old, and that's already, some people could retire at that age, and I gave it up and decided to fly solo, because I thought my time is now. If it doesn't happen, I'll have to figure something else out. So yeah, actually make it. And what other tough decisions? I wouldn't say it's a tough decision, but there are sacrifices that I feel like I've made to grow my business, and I've willingly made them because I knew that I could then reinstate these things. Like, just before we spoke earlier about my health, like I've always been super, super healthy, and I've spent so much time building my business that I neglected my health, not to a point where I needed to be hospitalized, but I just knew I could do better. I could have more vibrant energy, and I could be fitter. So that's back on the agenda again. Plus, my social life took a toll as well. So it was a mindful decision to invest in my business, but maybe a tough decision because it meant that I had to sacrifice other things as well. I had quite a nice luxury lifestyle before. When I was working, I was very fortunate to have a generous income, and it was like, let's go away for the weekend, let's go away for the weekend, let's go away for the weekend. But I always held on to this thought that I want to create a life that I don't need to escape from. So
yeah. I'd like to take it back a little bit further again, and you mentioned it just very briefly in passing about your study of positive psychology, and this is one of the things that we first connected on, was this topic. So I'd like to explore it a little bit more. This is something I talk about in my work, but I'd like to hear someone else's perspective on it. What did you learn in positive psychology, and what were some of the takeaways that you apply now into your work?
Positive psychology was completely transformational for how I operated in the world. When I finished my degree, the thing that I did first was put together a workshop that I just started delivering to anyone who would hear it. Again, I was still in like my public sector roles, and I'd be like, can I do a lunchtime learning session? Can I, like, always finding a way to get in, and just sharing with people things that, like, what I feel like is a lot of positive psychology is not like rocket science, but people can read things. There's a difference between reading them and then implementing them.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people can read things and be like, that sounds like a really great idea. And they feel good for that moment because they read about gratitude and they go, yeah, I'm really grateful, really grateful. And then they close the book and that's it. And they don't actually implement it as a core part of their life. So the things that I got from positive psychology have had a huge influence on how I operate now. In fact, mindset is one of the key things I work on with my women who join my mentoring program, and everybody is required to set up a morning routine. I'm not prescriptive about how they do it, but it needs to include a couple of elements that are going to help them grow as people. And the practice of gratitude, as you know, when you're in a grateful place, you can't be in a negative headspace. So starting the day with gratitude, starting the day with meditation, starting the day very intentionally. Some of the cool things I learned in positive psychology was, there's this sort of misconception that being a pessimist is a negative thing. And have you done much reading on pessimism and optimism?
Yeah, Martin Seligman talks about it a lot, and he notices that in some professions, for example, in law, most of the successful lawyers are pessimists because they're trained to look for the negative, and what they'll find in a contract or a piece of information is they'll look for the things that are wrong.
Yes.
And actually, an optimist will miss them because they're like, oh yeah, this contract is fine, whereas the pessimist is like, you're ripping us off here.
Yes, yeah. And that's it. And that's so interesting because there is value in pessimism. And the way Dad had it explained to me back at university was, you don't want an optimist flying your plane. You want someone who's going to do a check on all the mechanical things and look for the problems. You don't want an optimist doing your accounts. You want someone who's going to find the problems and make sure that you can work all the problems out. And like you've just given the example of, you don't want a pessimist, an optimist doing your contracts for you because they're like, yeah, everything's going to be great. And so tell me something. I think we can all swing between being optimistic and pessimistic depending on circumstance. And where would you grade yourself? Are you sort of 80% optimist, or what do you think?
I'm a big optimist. It would be 80-90% optimist. Even I think the misconception about optimists is some people think that optimists don't get sad or they don't feel negative. I think optimists still do, and I still do feel negative quite a lot. But even when I'm in a negative state, I look at it from an optimistic slant. So if I'm worried about something, I'll feel the worry, but I'll say to myself, okay, what do I need to do to make this situation better? How do I solve this problem? So even though I'm in a negative state, and physiologically, psychologically, you'd be putting me on kind of like the negative side of the scale in terms of what is going on for me in that moment, my perception in that moment is an optimistic one. So I think in that sense, I'm very high optimist, 80 or 90%.
Yeah, I'm probably in a similar level to you. I have my moments where I get in a bad place, but I also know that, one of my favorite sayings to myself is, this too shall pass. I know that it's not gonna, I can't see because I'm convinced it's gonna go on forever, but I'm like, Denise, it'll come to an end. And actually, I'm running a belief now that is really so valuable that, like, when you have these sort of, moments, these dark moments, that they just lead to breakthroughs. Like, you got to break down before you break through. And I keep telling myself that. And of course, when we say something enough times, we believe it. So when I get to the dark places, I'm like, this is just going to be great when it all turns around.
Yeah. One of the things that really sticks for me kind of on that point is, have you read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl? Yeah. I just think that book, for those who are listening who haven't read it, go read it. It's just a phenomenal book about a Jewish psychiatrist in Nazi concentration camps. And what he essentially found was that in the depths of suffering, we can still find meaning. And if we can find meaning, we can find a way to exist in that suffering, to push through, and to ultimately come out on the other side. And any time that I've got quote unquote problems in my life, I just think, if somebody in a concentration camp can find meaning in their suffering and they can find a way to be optimistic about the future, then I've got no excuse. None of us have any excuse at all. Kind of just get a grip.
And I love that book, and that comes highly recommended by me as well. So if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. And just to add to that, can I share with you a story that's really relevant to me at the moment?
Yeah, sure.
So a couple of years ago, my son was he's 25 years old, and he was eligible to be a stem cell donor. So he went on the stem cell register, and he donated stem cells. He got a call 2 years later saying, maybe it was a year later, saying that they had someone who was a match for him. So then the preparation to be a donor is that you get these injections, that it plumps up your stem cells, so you have aching bones for a few days. You spend a couple of days in the hospital. Like it's a requirement, and you're doing this for somebody else who you've never met before. And he did this 2 years ago. And there's a confidentiality agreement that both parties have to have, that you're not allowed to contact each other because it might not work. So he then, I'm going to get emotional. He gets this call, he gets this email from the Anthony Nolan Trust saying she wants to speak to you. And so he's had this communication with her. And it's blown me away. I've just been in tears since yesterday, because she sent him an email saying, like, you've given me the gift of life. She's a mother. She's got a young daughter. She's got a husband. But more than that, she sent him a message yesterday saying, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. Like, you need to go on my Facebook page and look at what I've been able to do because you gave me the gift of life. And she's climbed up some mountain where it's like just ice at the top, and she cycles everywhere, and she's just like carp DMing the hell out of life. And I got this last night, and yesterday was like a low moment for me, and I just thought something amazing is going to happen. And my son sent me this, and I was just in floods of tears. And when I looked her up, I'm like, I don't have a worry in the world. I don't have a worry. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for my son being an amazing human. I'm grateful to have good health. I'm grateful, grateful, grateful. And it just was such a perspective shift for me. Just in that moment, and even it just like fills me up with like joy, pride, the thought that a family has their mother, the child has their mother, the husband has his wife, that her friends, they all have her still there. Really put it in perspective for me about like man's search for meaning. You think, I haven't really got a problem here.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's amazing to be able to have that impact and that influence, because it's so many people's lives that you've touched through that circumstance and through that experience. So it's really it's those kind of things, they always make you feel warm and fuzzy, don't they, when you hear about how someone's helped someone else. Just can't help but make you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, super proud mom moment at the moment.
So looking a little bit more at some of these positive practices and habits that we know are linked to happiness and we know are linked to increases in well-being, are there any practices that you use for yourself on a regular basis that really help you to stay in a positive frame of mind?
Yes, totally. So definitely I wake up in the morning and there's always something I'm grateful for. I'm very intentional about my day, what I need to achieve that day. I'm not the most organized person, but I have my list of things that I want to achieve that are going to take me closer to my goal. So goal setting is a big thing for me as well. And one of the things I do about my business is I'm not a terribly religious person, but I have this prayer on my wall. Are you familiar with the Law of Divine Compensation by Marianne Williamson?
I know Marianne Williamson, but I don't know. Is that one of her books?
Yeah, it's one of her books. I listened to it on audio, and I wrote my own version, my own variation of this prayer that she has in there. May I read it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is what I say every single day. This is what starts me off for the day. And I use it whenever I feel like, if I have a moment where I'm like, what am I doing? I come back to this prayer, and it's this is a variation. It's not her own words. Hers were much more eloquent. It's, dear God, may this business idea be of the highest service to all that it impacts. If this is not the best use of my talents, please cast it from my mind. If it is the best use of my talents, please pave the way, make it a blessing for all it touches, and send me a miracle. Thank you. And that gets me back on track, because I think I don't need to do anything. I just need to be divinely guided to what needs to happen for me. So that's a non-negotiable for me on a daily basis. And I encourage my clients to make their own variation of that as well, so that, they know they're on the right path, because that gives me the confidence to know that to feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Especially those moments of and exercise is a huge part of my life, and it will be increasingly so again. As I said, I'd sort of let it slide. And dancing, these are the things that lift our spirits. They get the endorphins flowing. They're all part of positive practices. And giving to other people, like when you give to someone who can't do anything in return for you, is just tremendous for your soul. And what is it? 2 hours a week is the sort of prescription for giving. So I try and make a regular to take on clients that I know maybe are not in a position to pay me, but I can help them. Or just lending a helping hand wherever you can is I'm big on that, and I like to get my clients involved in being givers as well. I think naturally they all are givers because we attract what we are anyway. And in terms of other positive practices, I think people. It's funny. I used to get misconstrued. People used to call me like Pollyanna, saying I lived with my clouds because I was just such a positive person. And almost thinking that I'd never experienced pain in my life because I could laugh and smile. Do you ever does anyone ever do you have this experience as well?
I do, yeah. How can you be so positive, or even you're being too positive? And I'm like, I'm not being too positive. I'm sure you're about to say the same thing, Denise, so apologies if I steal the words out of your mouth. But what I found is that it's far easier to be positive than negative in life. And it's far easier to react to things and deal with things when you're positive rather than you're negative. Because the negative stuff is going to happen regardless of whether you're a positive person or a negative person. But for me, what I've found is that moving past that and it not having such a big impact on you, it's far easier to be in a good place to deal with it when you're positive. Which is probably what you're about to say.
Well, no, and I'll just expand on that a little bit more as well. So, and it's what we believe. It's what we like. You have the choice over what you believe. So if you feel that you are innately, we do have this negative bias anyway. We have this internal, natural negative bias. But if we can choose to overrule that and choose a different response, that will then become a belief, because anything that we repeat enough becomes a belief. And all the listeners out there, if there are ways that you're stopping yourself from doing something, it's because you're telling yourself a story that is probably a mistruth that you've picked up from your childhood, that you keep investing time in and saying to people, see, I told you I couldn't do that. Thus reinforcing that you can't do it and making the belief even more powerful for yourself. So if you choose to say, it's all going to be fine, it's all going to work out just fine, that belief will be the energy that carries you forward. And guess what will happen as a result? Everything will be fine. Even if you hit another stumbling block, it'll be like, okay, well, we're going to get through this too.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really key thing to have. And I think I have always had that since a young age. And I don't particularly know where that came from, of just feeling that things are going to work out all right. And I feel that I was actually blogging about this last week or so. I feel that I'm quite a lucky person. I consider myself to be a lucky person. I look at some of the things that I've done and I'm like, flipping hell, I'm lucky to have gone away with that, or I'm lucky that something worse didn't happen, or I'm lucky that everything turned out right. So I consider myself quite a lucky person. And there's an expression that the harder you try, the luckier you get. And I think that's part of it. Of number one, it's the belief of believing that you're lucky, or believing that things are going to work out fine. And when you have that belief, consciously and unconsciously probably more powerfully so, you actually start to do things that will create the better outcome. And it begins with that belief of believing you're a lucky person, or believing that everything's going to turn out right. And actually that belief starts to generate the action that does make everything all right, that does make you a lucky person.
Absolutely. And again, elaborating on that point, one of the issues that I found with people who say that they want to make a change in their life is the lack of consistency until something is embedded as a belief. They give up too quickly on it, and like the chimp mind is too quick to come over to jump in and tell them what's not possible before they've given themselves a fair chance. Me included. I've still got my own stuff I still work through, and I'm telling other people how to do it, but I've still got my own chimp that says things to me as well, tries to keep me playing small. So it's interesting, and consistency is key, which is what I find with my clients when they work on my courses with me, because now I'm doing the mentoring course, but last year my courses were all very coaching focused, and they were all, like, one of my courses was 21 days to happier ways, and it was just 21 days of positive psychology, one little bite-sized chunk a day to do. And like, I think the outcome surprised even me, because like by day 7, I had people going, my life has transformed. I was like, yay, go me. But these things that they'd read about, and then suddenly it was like, today you have a bite-sized chunk and it's going to be like a forgiveness letter, or today's bite-sized chunk is going to be, and it could have been any one of these positive psychology things. And, people's lives are transforming from doing these activities. And I still get people who are like, I had a girl contact me the other day, and she's like, I'm still doing the things, and I'm feeling more positive. And it's just amazing because that has a ripple effect. And people, like, when people start transforming and they go, well, how do I deal with the people around me who are not transforming with me? And I'm like, well, all you need to do is embody all the new things that you are learning and just be that beacon of light for them, so that some will be repelled by that, and that is okay, because maybe they don't belong in your life, and others will get curious and want to know more about what you're doing. So you can start that ripple effect, because we all need to sort of raise the vibration of the planet one way or another. And when we're doing these tiny little things, we're lifting each other up.
Yeah. I liked the line that you finished on there, raising the vibration of the planet. And I think our planet could use some vibration right now. We've got a lot of stuff going on in the world. For you, Denise, if you look at the world and you look at the way things are going right now, how do you think we can bring more love into the world?
There's a whole range of ways. I think we need to get positive psychology in schools. Think we need to, our education system needs to incorporate some soulful practices that are going to teach students. Like, kids are generally kind anyway, but to teach them practices about kindness, to teach them some basic positive psychology principles about resilience, about, post-traumatic growth, that, if you came from a broken home or you were abused as a child or whatever, that doesn't mean you're a broken person. You can turn that into a victory for yourself. You can use that to create something powerful in your life. So in schools, in workplaces as well, because a workplace is only as good as the employees that it has there. If they're all just disgruntled and discontent, so introducing, and I tried to do this. I did, I did have an opportunity to do it. I worked in Chelmsford at Broomfield Hospital. I was in charge of employee well-being, which was great because there were 4,000 staff there, and I had an article in the paper every week in the newsletter, and I got to do these workshops, and I got to sort of have this ripple effect on all these staff. So schools, workplaces, just in neighborhoods as well. It has to be a concept that's not seen, like positive psychology needs to be seen as not pie in the sky. It's good practice. It's good for your soul. People know how good they feel when they laugh. People know how good they feel when they do something for someone else, when they're expressing gratitude, when they're letting go of crap that doesn't serve them anymore. They know how good it feels. You don't need research. You don't even need research to show you that. It's just about doing it and trusting that that's the right thing. We live in such a world where if you can't touch it, if there's no evidence to prove it, then it doesn't matter. And that's totally not true, because you can shift somebody's vibration by giving them simple tasks, and they know they feel better, and you can feel it. You can see the shift in them. You can see there's a lightness in them. There's something changes in them, and you can't deny that. And when people go home and then share that with somebody else, that has a knock-on effect as well. And so yeah, schools, workplaces, in family settings, wherever it can be, filtered out. Even like, just going to the gym, getting more people being not even necessarily going to the gym, but just being more physically active as well, getting the endorphins. Like, you look around and there's such an obesity. I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but in England, there's such an epidemic of obesity around. And it's not just that it's not like a crime to be obese, but there are health price to pay for that, and you can't be functioning on all cylinders if you're carrying all this excess weight. Your mental capacity is going to be fatigued by junk food, and your physical capacity is going to be limited because limited movement. So there's a whole range of things we need to do. We need to be physically more active. We need to be embracing that. I don't know if I'm going off piece a bit, but these are some of the things.
We need to solve everything. We need to help everyone.
No, well, we do, and it's not. The thing is, it isn't rocket science. It's not difficult to do. It's putting things into practice that have been dismissed as being a bit airy-fairy, and maybe to the English audience, maybe a bit un-English because we don't do things like that. Well, I got news for you. You do things like that, because personal development is really like caught fire here. It's like it's everywhere. There are men talking about their feelings.
Shock horror.
And opening up and being vulnerable and saying that they're hurting, and being able to share things, and Facebook, social media is so powerful. And I actually believe I'm such a big Facebooker. I think your Facebook feed has like an energy of its own. So even if you haven't posted on it, if someone posts on the people you attract, they're going to post the kind of things that are kind of consistent with the vibe that you are. So, using social media in a way that allows people to feel good as well, so that they're reading your posts and they feel good just reading it, and then maybe they want to share it, or it inspires them to write an equally as inspiring post. And while I'm on a rant, I'll go into like the film industry and like video games. I think there needs to be a social responsibility around things like that as well. Like, if you've done the research around positive psychology, you know that the things that we view have an impact on how we behave. That children who view violent scenes are more likely to go out and be violent themselves, or if they witness something that's more innocuous, it doesn't have a negative impact on them. Or I don't know if you know about the study about I think it was in Colombia, the young girls who weren't taking birth control, like there was a teenage pregnancy problem, and then they put it on the equivalent of EastEnders. They put a teenage mother starting to use contraception, and it positively impacted the teenage pregnancy rate in this country. I'm completely misquoting but it was somewhere in Central America, and the impact was profound, because we're influenced by what we view. So I think there's a real responsibility. Like, we need to see more films about people, paying it forward, being kinder, being good people, like the good guy winning in the end, and less sort of, I remember one year, it was Christmas, and it was a few years back, and my son wanted, I can't remember what game it was, but it was like, kill everybody in sight and run them over game. And he's like, you want to play? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like killing people and running them over and scoring points. This is so wrong on so many levels. But to think it doesn't desensitize people is just wrong. I think we need to have that responsibility around that.
Yeah, there's so many things that we could talk about more in that rant. I guess I'll just go through them sequentially and see what comes up. Going back to one of the first things you were talking about with health, obesity, I think number one of the things is just because someone isn't fat doesn't mean that they're not living an unhealthy lifestyle. And actually some people who are carrying maybe a little bit of extra weight are actually on the whole of things living a lot healthier than someone who on a BMI index is quote unquote healthy. And I think there is a mindset behind health that I think contributes to poor health. And I see this a lot in Scotland, and I think it's worse in Scotland than it is in England, that there's this. So here we have Iron Brew. That's our soda of choice. It's Scotland. Yes. Scotland is the only country where Coca-Cola is not the number one selling soft drink. In Scotland, it's Iron Brew. So we have this kind of culture of I have my Iron Brew, I have my steak pie, I have my pint of beer, and that's what it means to be Scottish, is to do these things. So it's very much ingrained into the identity. And going against that is kind of a statement and like a threat to the identity of, sometimes I'll be eating my sweet potato salad, and the comment that I get nearly all the time someone sees me eating a meal like that is, oh wow, that's very healthy. And it's said in oh, why are you eating that very healthy thing? And it's this mindset thing. And even if people are wanting to be healthy, they have this programming of actually, well, what we do is we treat ourselves and we have our Iron Brew and we have a couple of pints and we have our steak pie and things. And I think that mindset, we spend all this money, you'll know this being in the NHS, we spend all this money trying to promote healthy eating habits or just healthy lifestyle in general. But actually, nobody's going to do these things whilst they have that mindset.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's such an interesting point, because definitely the culture in England is, I don't know if it's a steak pie, but it's, fish and chips is, curry is the meal of choice for England, and a pint of beer. I do think certainly living in London, there's a lot more, everywhere there's so many more healthy options. I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but London definitely you don't have to walk far to grab healthy options now. But clearly by looking around, not everybody is opting for those healthier options. But it's not just a physical benefits, it's a mental clarity that comes with getting rid of toxins in your body when you've got this accumulation of, and when you're carrying too much fat, it's a toxic body you're walking around in. So and then it's there's a social responsibility for parents as well, because children copy their parents. They copy what the parents do, and we're always growing, evolving as people. And when my kids were growing up, I would periodically say, I'm really sorry. And they'd be like, for what? I'm like, because I've screwed you up in ways that you don't even know yet.
You'll go to Tony Robbins' seminar one day and you're like, my mother did all this and she made me think like this.
But the thing is, life is backward in that way, because by time we know what we would do differently, we've already done the damage. So I would have maybe or maybe not, I would have dealt with my divorce in a different way that was less impactful on the kids. I might have made more time for them because I was always busy doing something, and you just do things. And now on reflection, I'm like, wow, if I could have done that over again, I'd do it a different way. So I think there's, and when you're raising children as well, I was a single mother for a few years, so I know what it's like, pushing a pushchair, carrying bags, you got the dog on a lead, you got one kid behind you, and you're like, positive psychology, up yours. You're kind of in survival mode. So, I get that. But I do think that, there needs to be some mindfulness about the impact that we're having, and to question ourselves, like when we're imposing a view, because we cannot not impose a view on our children. We tell them what's right and wrong because that's what we believe. But if they're going, but why? That actually, maybe we need to sit back and go, great question, why? Is there really a valid basis for this, or is this just because it's how we've always done things around here, which doesn't make sense to anyone, but it's just the answer because that's how we do it.
Mm-hmm. So you've talked about your children, and you've talked about the education system and hoping to bring more positive psychology into sort of mainstream education. If you had a 5-year-old in front of you and you wanted to teach them all the things you know about life that are ultimately going to help them to live the happiest, most fulfilled life that they can possibly live, what advice would you give to that 5-year-old?
I would say, first of all, let's go into my garden because there's bubbles out there and we're going to blow bubbles. First and foremost. And ask them what they want to do. And if it's a little boy who wants to wear a tutu, I'd be like, get your tutu and let's get it in every color. Wear your tutu and be as true to yourself as you can. And as you go through life and you find that you don't fit in, that be aware that everybody feels the same as well, and celebrate your differences, like looking at multiple intelligences, theory of multiple intelligences, like find out what you love most and pursue the hell out of it. Like just be the best version of that you can, and find the people who are going to support you. It might not be your own family. It might be a teacher at school. It might be a friend's parent. It might be somebody that you're not expecting who will be your biggest cheerleader, but be the best version of you. There'll be nobody who's ever like you, and life is going to try and and this poor kid's blowing bubbles and thinking, what? Life is going to try and compartmentalize you, and your job is to stay true to you. Mm-hmm. And if the compartment fits and you like it, that's great. But if it doesn't, then know that your people are out there somewhere, and find your people who are going to support and celebrate you and allow you to be the greatest expression. Because the greatest gift you could give to the world is living as fully as possible in a place of integrity and alignment, because people benefit when you're shining, and you're only going to shine when you're at your best. Mm-hmm. You can't fake alignment. You can't fake genuine energy about things. That people sense it. People have built-in bullshit detectors. They can so you might trick them for some of the time, but you can't trick them all the time. So be real, be authentic.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you use the words authentic, because authentic is one of the driving words behind my work. It's one of the driving words behind this podcast, and for the past couple of years I've been really intrigued by this notion of authentic, and what does it mean to be authentic? How do we be true to ourselves? How do we let our light shine bright into the world? And looking into the root of the word authentic, when you go all the way back into ancient Greece, the Greek root of authentic is author. So to be authentic, the way that the Greeks viewed it, was to be the author of your life, to write your own story, to decide who you want to be and what script you want to live out to. And that's where, for me, author your life started to be born, this notion of we are the authors of our lives, and we do decide what hero do we want to be, what story do we want to be a part of. So for me, the way that I view authentic is all about that notion of being the author of your life, of deciding what story you want to live. You've touched upon a couple of elements there of what you think authentic is, but is there anything else that you'd like to add that you think defines how we be authentic in our lives?
That's such a great question, because I was just on a call with a client earlier who we're trying to bust through some of her money beliefs, and she said to me, it's just who I am. And I challenged her on it, saying, that's a limiting belief. That's just who you are. It's just who you are that's going to keep you broke if you keep believing that. So it then challenged me to think, is she being authentic to herself to believe that that's just who she is. And because I'm thinking, well, maybe she is meant to be broke. Maybe that's her. But it's a belief, and it's a belief she's choosing at this point. So I just gave her the opportunity to consider an alternative belief that maybe it's not who she is. Maybe she can generate, because she's been working with me and she's, remained trying to generate income and not been managing to do it. But others working with me are managing to do it. So there's something stopping her. And if she believes that that's her authentic self, who doesn't deserve, but then I'm like, no, that's a limiting belief. We all deserve to be abundant. If we come from a place of believing we all deserve to be abundant, then it is a limiting belief that she would have learned, that I still invite her to consider an alternative to that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's a really interesting point of, this is something that I think about a little bit in my work as well, of that's the way that I've defined being authentic, is really having sort of aspirations for yourself and who you can be and what you can do in your life. But how do you marry up the desire to push yourself, the desire to challenge, and the desire to grow with also being accepting of yourself, being happy in the moment, and being satisfied with what you have? We talked about gratitude earlier, and can you live in that place where you're grateful for everything that you are and everything that you have, and also strive for something more? And I think you can have that, but it's a very fine balance. And I think in this personal development journey, we've got to be very careful not to slip too much over into the side of aspiration, ambition, achievement, progress for progress's sake. And can I get more money? Can I get more clients? Can I get more sex? Whatever it might be. Can I get more of this? And I think marrying up that more with, is this more coming from a place of aspiration? Is it coming from a place of abundance, that I believe that I can be abundant and have more? Or is it coming from a place of, I want more to fill up something that is missing, or to replace something that I don't like about myself?
Yeah, that's a really cool point. And I've been listening to Gary Vee's Crushing It book at the moment, and he raises some points, because I'm always like, we all deserve to be living our best life. We all deserve, like, all this stuff I keep going on about. But Gary's hit on a point, because I've been thinking lately, I'm like, maybe not everyone is. Some people have to be the worker bees. Some people have to be the worker bees. Not everybody desires to be a leader. And this is what Gary says. He's like, some people are born to be moderate. They don't need to be like, they're not like he's not judging it, and I'm not judging it, because it's been something I've been struggling with too, because I'm thinking, is it true that everyone is born for greatness, but their greatness can be manifest in a way that's not world impacting? It can be, the cleaner in the hospital can be having a positive. There's a man at our petrol station. You go in there and he sings to you. Like, you can't be in a bad mood when you go in there. Hello, madam, and how are you today? And he's just, he just makes everything into a song. So that's him impacting the world in the way he's choosing to impact the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. It's a really interesting point. Actually, we ended up discussing this on a previous podcast with another guest, and I mentioned I went to Portsmouth. You might have been there yourself, down on the south coast of England, and they've got the Spinnaker Tower, which is the tallest building in the city, and there's an elevator to go up, and it's like 100 meters tall or something like that, so you get like a good view from the top. And there was a man in the elevator who sort of talks you through the 30-second journey that it takes you to get from the bottom up to the top. And I just got this amazing energy off this man, and the way that he was describing the tower, the process of how you get up, what you could do. He wasn't like over the top enthusiastic about it, but the way that he expressed it, he just seemed so aligned with his role as the elevator guy, and making your elevator experience the best it could possibly be. And I think that he was living utterly authentically. He was just completely in alignment with who he was and what he was doing. And you could look at him and say, well, he's only an elevator guy. But actually, that is his mission. That is his purpose. He is the elevator guy who makes your elevator journey the very best possible experience that it can be. And I think that really kind of like ties in with the point you're talking about some people, we're not all destined to be at the top of the pyramid, because otherwise the pyramid would fall down. There'd be nothing holding it up.
And I just want to share with you about a story. I was in Rome with my husband a few weeks back, and there's a building called the Wedding Cake. Have you been to Rome?
No, I haven't. No.
There's a building called the Wedding Cake. It's a beautiful building, and it was where we found there was a free toilet. So, when you're traveling, you need to like check where the toilets are. So we always knew we could go back to there to get the free toilet. So we turned up there one day, and there was a huge queue for this toilet. And there's one lady, and there's gents to the left and women to the right, and this one lady is managing the toilet, and she did it like a boss. She totally managed this so well. People were she had men and women in the same queue, but she was then calling them forward and allocating them a cubicle. She was cleaning the floors in between everyone going into the toilets. She was wow. Precision. Yeah. And people would walk up and she's like, no, just get in the queue kind of thing. Get in the queue, and saying to Italian, just get in the queue. And when I came, I said to my husband, that woman is amazing. So we went and we gave her a very nice tip. And she's like, no, it's too much. I'm like, no, you are amazing. You have managed this. No. And I walked out down the queue and I said to her, I'm like, she is out of this world. She was tiny, skinny little woman, but no one was messing with her toilets. She was keeping them in pristine condition and managing the queue. And that was her job. And she was doing it like it was nobody's business. Mm-hmm. It was incredible to see. Pardon me.
So, Denise, I'd like to round up everything that we've been talking about. So many different topics, so many different points of thought and philosophies. But bringing it all together, one of the things that you said near the beginning of our time together was when you turned 50, you recognized that you've probably had more time than what you've got left. And ultimately, at one time, we will all expire. When that moment comes for you, and I'm sure it'll be many, many years from now, when you've expired, what legacy would you like to have left in the world?
That's a wonderful question. I would like to have a legacy of people who remember that they can be in charge of their emotions, that they're taking things that I've taught them from the world of positive psychology and moving forward with that and spreading that ripple of kindness, of gratitude, of positive thinking, and just knowing that they can shift their energy and they can be the change. They can ripple and they can impact other people. So just leaving a legacy of at the moment it's mostly women I'm working with, so leaving that impact so they just can keep improving the quality of their families, improving the quality of their workplaces and of their own businesses, and leaving the world feeling a little bit like a kinder place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure you'll leave that legacy, Denise. So for people who've been listening to this interview and they've enjoyed what we've been speaking about, they like your philosophies and they like your outlook on life, and they'd like to find out a little bit more about what you do and how you work with people, where would you direct people? Where's the best place for people to find out a little bit more about you and get in touch with you?
They can email me at fabulous@denisemortimer.com.
Love that.
Or they can find me on Facebook, which is it's Denise Mortimer. My Facebook thread is just full of all the stuff that I do. And I think I've got room for about 700 more friends. So, so anyone who wants to add me can add me. On Instagram, I am Denise_Mortimer. And I welcome anyone on Instagram or Facebook. Love to connect with people. And I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard tonight.
Well, I certainly have, Denise. What I've particularly enjoyed is the back and forth that we've had during this, and how you've you've turned the interview on its head at some points, and you've questioned me, and you've put me on the spot about certain things and asking me to answer some questions. I really enjoyed that dynamic during this discussion, and I hope that people listening have found some value from that and they've enjoyed it as well. And in fact, I'm sure they have. So I'd just like to say thank you for bringing that energy and bringing that dynamic attitude into our time together today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it hugely if you could head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the podcast. With your review, please be as honest and detailed as you can be, because with honest and detailed feedback, that helps me to adapt and grow this podcast to most serve you, the listener. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way you aren't going to miss any of the future episodes that we've got lined up for you. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story.